All right, everybody, welcome and thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Premier Esports Academy web series. My name's Dan Himmelstein, founder and brain coach of Premier Esports Academy. Now, last week we talked about communicating with others in the organization, whether that's teammates, peers, friends even, coaches. We talked a little bit about feedback and how to give and introduce feedback, but today we're going to change gears a little bit and we're going to talk about how we speak to ourselves, which is another very important part of performance. So the first thing I want to ask you guys, and you can do this at home, raise your hand if you've ever said anything to yourself during a performance, ever spoke to yourself and given yourself any clues, hints, etc. Now, if you said yes to that question, you're crazy, you can go home, you can quit. Just kidding. We've all done this, and it's something that is very popular in performance and within performers. So we need to monitor and use this skill to the best of our abilities because it actually is a skill. Now, as human beings, we're apparently inclined to look at more of the negative self-talk or the adverse self-talk. So we can talk about two different sides of the coin here. One is going to be positive or constructive self-talk, and then the other is going to be negative or adverse self-talk. Now, unfortunately, the more common is the negative or adverse self-talk, and that's what we're going to try and reshape and reframe here. So we want to make sure that we're using the positive and the constructive sides of self-talk, and there's a number of really good reasons for this. One, to build self-efficacy, to build confidence, to help you acquire new skills, to create goals and to create motivation, to change your mood, even to help you focus and concentrate better. This can all be done and mitigated or used. Self-talk can be used in order to help these channels and acquire them. So, like I said, we're unfortunately very inclined to focus on the negative side of self-talk. Who's ever said, I suck, or I can't do this? Things of that nature. I mean, we all have it. It's part of our human nature. So those are the things that we really want to reshape and reframe, because our mind and our body starts to believe the things that we say to each other. So if we constantly keep saying, man, I suck at this, I'm just no good, then our mind and our body are going to start to believe those notions that we're not very good, and we're not going to improve from there. We're going to stay on this plateau and end up, potentially even dipping below that plateau, and that's obviously not what we want. We want improvement. So, we're so inclined to focus on the results, wins, losses, and we're so much easier to recall and remember the times that we lost than the times that we won. Now, it's as simple as, let's start reframing that. Let's start reshaping that and putting losses behind us and saying, you know what, that's no big deal. What am I going to do? I'm going to use this to improve in the future. That's more positive. That's shaping it in a constructive manner, as opposed to saying, oh, I suck, I can never do this, yada, yada, yada. Now, another one that I see very frequently in esports, and I'm sure all of you guys know someone who does this as well, they take all the blame. They're the people who are the first to speak up and say, guys, that loss was my fault. I could have done this, that, or that. And that's great, and that accountability piece is so, so important. But if we rely on that mindset, not only does it remove accountability from everyone else where they can just say, well, it was probably their fault, but you're going to start to believe that, your body's going to start doing that, and your mind's going to start doing that over and over again to a point where that's going to be the result. You are going to mess up the game, and you're going to start doing that. And, especially in these team esports, we all know it's usually not just one specific event or, one mistake that loses the whole game. I mean, these games are obviously multiple rounds, usually multiple maps in the series. So, you can't always just put that blame on you automatically, because that's going to be your mind and body's auto. So some of the things, and this is something that I use every day, I make sure that I'm monitoring the things that I say to myself. You can do this. If you can't do it, then it's, I can't do this yet. That word yet is so, so powerful, because it gives your mind the inspiration and says, okay, if I can't do this yet, what do I need to do? What do I need to improve to get there? that's much more constructive. It might not be necessarily on the positive side, but it's certainly constructive in that we can create an action plan, give ourselves something to do. So, it's really important that we are checking in with ourselves, making sure that we're monitoring what we say and how we go about it. And if we use positive, constructive self-talk the right way, there's a ton of benefits that we can really use to our advantage that other people, they're still stuck saying the I can't, I won't, I never will. While on the other hand, we're going to be improving and using this to our advantage, saying, I can, this is what I need to do. Picking ourselves up, being our own best friend. So my action plan to you guys is anytime you say something to yourself, so here it is. If a friend were to come up to us and be like, Dan, I suck, I'd be very inclined to be like, well, have you looked at it this way, and have you done this, and have you done that? But, that's because that friend has a bouncing board. They came to me and I can respond. When we say those things to ourselves, there's no one to respond. It just ruminates and it gets stuck in our own minds and gets played over and over again. So my action plan, anytime that you say something negative in terms of your self-talk, I want you to think to yourself, okay, if a friend came up to me and said this to me, how would I respond to them? It's probably likely that you are going to console them or reframe it, reshape it in another way, unless they flat out suck, and then, that's a wash. No, I'm just kidding. But, keep that in mind. If a friend were to come up and say this to me, what would I say? How would I make them feel better? How would I reshape this phrase? And then use that to my own advantage. Use that for myself. And the other action plan is, after you bring awareness to your self-talk, make sure you're looking at patterns, different habits, and replacing your, filler words or whatever that may be, your negative filler words, damn it, I suck. Make sure that you fill those in with another cue, or, I just can't do this. Make sure you're filling it in with, I can't do it yet. Creating that action plan like we mentioned. So bring awareness to it. What would you do if a friend came up to you? And then reshaping those patterns, those thoughts. So that's going to be it for today. If you wanted to check out the communication between others, feedback, make sure you look back at the other videos. Make sure you give me a follow on Twitter for exclusive content. My username is down at the bottom right of your screen. It is dims_esports or dhims_esports, whichever you feel. Make sure you subscribe to see when new videos come out, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much.